Iron Robin and Frank Ribery as Bayern Munich won the title once again. But we start at Wembley, the FA Cup final. Manchester City taking on Watford. City, of course, side. For more reaction, let's go to Alexis and Craig, who are at Wembley.
Thanks, Dan. And what a final we saw. It turned out to be a very lopsided final, though, as many would have expected, considering how good this Manchester City team is, Craig.
I mean, there's always the problem that, and I say problem, it's not a problem for City, but it was for Watford. There is always that problem that if you go behind like Watford did and then they just keep the hammer down and the quality comes through, you miss a couple of chances, particularly one big one for Pereira when he was through one-on-one. You have to take those opportunities to put City under a bit of pressure to get them on the back foot. Watford never really did that, and then as the game was going in the end.
Well, no Sergio Aguero to start, and I mean, they didn't really miss him, and Gabriel Jesus just absolutely stepped up to the plate. I spoke to him a little earlier, and he says that he just knows he's grown as such a player under Pep Guardiola. Did you see that?
Yeah, and he's not got that much game time. You know, he's played, and you know, when we saw the team sheets, we thought, oh no, Aguero, and then, you know, forgot at the time that it was Jesus that was playing in all the FA Cup games. So in some sense, Aguero would have known coming in that he wasn't going to play any part, particularly not from the start. However, it must be frustrating for Jesus watching Aguero playing in the Champions League and the Premier League, because he's a fantastic player. But he played well today. The way that he controlled the ball for one of his, was it what?
Treble for Manchester City. Some would say quadruple if you count the Community Shield. Just how good is this City team? You're not counting it, Chris.
No,
forget about it.
You know, that's just a pre-season. You know, they're not really fussed about that. But you know, domestic treble, amazing. First time it's ever been done.
All-time best City team, this?
Done it with aplomb, absolutely. Well, it's all-time best City team, yeah, for sure. But did it with aplomb, did it with a style. We're possibly an Aguero penalty miss away at Tottenham from going to the Champions League into the final, and we're probably... Well,
today,
I wasn't
with a Watford mascot.
I wasn't expecting... there was lots of fanfare in the crowd, lots of people dressed up, and then suddenly... this damn mascot appeared behind me. So I was quite happy. I high-fived him, and I think you did. But ultimately, when he started dancing, I turned around, I thought, I ain't got a choice now. I hadn't had a drink in me, so I thought, I've got to do it. And so he ended up dancing. It wasn't pretty, and that's why, as I said, I don't dance at weddings, because I can't dance.
But he dances on FCTV. Shall we dance our way out, Craig? Come on, dance with me.
I tried. I'm not doing it again. I'm not doing it again.
Shuffle. Come on, Craig.
Get us out of here.
Do it.
Get us out.
Back to you guys.
I wish you could see Stevie Nicholls' jaw literally drop. You haven't seen that, have you?
No.
Craig dancing.
I can't get him to dance with a lot of beers in him, never mind there with none. I mean, Dancing with the Stars will not be on the phone anytime soon.
No, definitely not. Right, let's talk about the game, shall we? Where it's impossible not to wax lyrical about this Manchester City side.
Right, I'll say one thing. The game totally changed when Pereira missed that chance. You know, if he puts that chance away, it gives them something to grab onto. Gives them a bit of a bone. And when that chance goes a-begging and the ball goes in the back of the net, shortly after for City, you know the game's over. And Manchester City, how do you beat Manchester City?
Right.
You know, you can try and do what Watford did today, is sit back tight and defend and try and break on them, and they got beat 6-0. Or you can go gung-ho and say, OK, we're going to go for it, we're going to attack, yeah, we're going to go toe-to-toe. But they're so talented and so clever, so good, so full of ability, that you can end up losing 6-0 doing that as well. So how do you beat this Manchester City side? I don't know. Unless you can fill the Premier League with a team like Liverpool, that gives them a game, then... who's to say this Man City team can't just continue to win after win after win?
Pep Guardiola, of course, adds yet another trophy to his incredible haul. It is a resume that beats pretty much everyone of his generation. This is just in England and the City, you not including what happened at Bayern and Barcelona. And what I thought was telling and interesting...
about keeping them on their toes, keeping them grounded, keeping them doing the things that they do best. And that's what your greatest managers do. I played under one in Kenny Dalglish. This guy wouldn't give you a second, regardless. Regardless. If he thought you went below the standard that he thought you were at, then you got it. And that's what Guardiola's doing there. He's holding Sterling to a standard. Now, fortunately, he's got a bunch of players who don't seem to have too many egos. And so what they do is they take on board what he says, they listen to what he says, and they do it on the field. And they do it every single time they step on the field. And Pep Guardiola has made this team not think about what competition we're in. It doesn't matter to Pep Guardiola what competition it is. It's a football game. And this is how you should play when you play football.
Now, what sort of challenge does he have going forward, keeping the likes of Gabriel Jesus, who we saw play today and was fantastic? We discussed Leroy Sané yesterday and his future. Even a Kevin De Bruyne, who hasn't featured much, obviously that was because of injury, but isn't a guaranteed starter. How do you keep those sort of players on side when going forward, if you're not necessarily in the starting 11, when you know that you can walk into any other team in the world? How do you play that? And what do you do from a player's perspective as well, if you're Gabriel Jesus, for example?
Well, I think you've got to look at the mix that he has. And really the only person that I think you may have a concern about would be Jesus. Because I think Leroy Sané's going to go.
Right.
I think you can tell that he's not happy coming off the bench, not starting. Right now, Jesus is quite happy doing that.
Right.
One, because he's got Aguero in front of him. But there comes a time when he'll get fed up of that. That is the only position I see where he's going to have a problem. Because they have so many games, they need a squad. Everybody is in tune with the way top teams play now. Everybody knows that they're not going to play every game. And so straight away, you've got rid of one hurdle. And the other hurdle, I mentioned before, you talk about no egos. That means that when you're asked to set this game, there's no sulking.
Right.
There's no taking the huffy puff. You're getting on with it because you know you're going to be playing again. Everybody knows they're going to get game time. So I would say the only one that he has to be careful of is that Jesus doesn't sort of start drifting away with not playing. Other than that, this squad is perfect. Great characters, as I said, no egos. And have you ever seen a bunch of players with a bigger smile on their face?
Yeah. However, the same cannot be said about our FA Cup podcast when it comes to egos. Frank Leboeuf and Craig Burley join me. We talked about what it was like playing for Chelsea during those days, where they, of course, featured